All right, we are live. Hello, good afternoon, people of YouTube and of the podcast sphere. Welcome to Spectator Diff, at this point, episode 11, no longer new esports podcast from
That's
the
true.
two most underpaid spectators in the Overwatch League. My name is Brad. Matt is over in that box over there. As always, we have opinions on professional Overwatch and now Overwatch 2, by the way. And gosh darn it, someone needs to hear them. We're normally here on Mondays. This week, last week, and next week, we're here on Tuesday around this time, 12:30 Eastern-ish, to give you a, words. Blah, 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 blah. Reset.
Got it.
We're normally here every week at 12:30 Eastern to give you some headlines about what's going on in the Overwatch world, hit you with a game of the week, hit you with some predictions for next week, and then get the hell out of here to now play Overwatch 2. So before we get started, before we start hitting you with headlines, do us both a favor, hit this video with a like, subscribe to the channel, really helps us. It's free to you. It's free for us, and hopefully eventually pays us a little tiny bit of money. And then also go subscribe to us and download our episodes wherever you consume your podcasts. So now that I have completely botched the intro because I am only partially awake, Matt, start us off with some headlines, and I'm going to get some background music going because I forgot to do that.
Hey, it was good enough. Don't worry, it was good enough. So before I even really get into headlines, because a lot of the headlines this week were about Overwatch 2's launch week, I just want to give us a chance to talk about Overwatch 2 at launch, because I'm not going to read through every headline about both the DDoS attacks and or all of the bugs they found and or the other things that have happened with queue times and stuff. Brad, I just wanted to ask you, as somebody who has been playing online FPS games for years now, what are your thoughts on this first week of Overwatch 2?
Okay, so don't get me wrong. I will say that it was a little bit buggier than I had anticipated. I kind of was going into this expecting, because it is a live service game, in 2022, that no matter what they did, no matter what precautions they were going to take, there were going to be problems day 1 through day 5. I sort of anticipated that. And so I have been relatively patient with the launch itself. That being said, it was a little bit more than I was expecting. Like, there's just things going wrong left and right that I can't really fault them for. This was a massive undertaking to take a game, basically evaporate all of Overwatch 1. Like, quite literally evaporate that game and turn the sequel into a live service game while simultaneously merging everyone's accounts, including all of their accounts across every platform. Make everything free. Also lock off some of the heroes for brand new players while not locking off those same heroes for the people who have had this game for 4 years to 2 months. And everything, this was extremely complicated when you break it down logically. Like, all of the pieces that had to fall into place while they were getting DDoSed almost every day. Like, I think, was it rockier of a start than anyone was expecting? Was it rockier of a start than it probably should have been? Yeah, absolutely. Does that mean that it was a complete flop? No. I think, anybody that's complaining at this point either hasn't been playing any sort of live service game in the past 6 years, or just really wants to hate Overwatch.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. I think I would give this launch a C+. You get a C+ for me, Overwatch 2, for your launch week.
I'll give it a C++.
Boo.
Coding humor.
Boo.
Code humor.
Boo.
Yes.
Too many bugs for code humor. I think that there were some bugs that felt really reasonable and others that felt pretty extraneous. And I think because there were so many bugs that felt reasonable, the extraneous bugs felt worse. And the one that really bummed me out, I was not personally affected, but somebody in the group of people I play Overwatch with was affected, was the account merger error. That if you merged your PC to your console account, some people just couldn't play the game. That sucks. I think that the Overwatch team launched the account merge like 2 full months ago, right?
Yeah.
And how, I mean, we've been saying it on this show for like a month and a half. Merge your accounts, spend your tokens. And I think, honestly, at this point, I mean, the person in our group who was affected by this bug is somebody who I play Overwatch with, and not necessarily every day, but like multiple days a week. And I know that Overwatch 1 prompted me like, hey, nerd, merge your accounts. At some point, I assume that it had to prompt him the same. And the fact that we got almost like 4 or 5 days after launch before that shit was sorted out is lame. Again, I am not a coder. I do not know how to make games, and I will not claim to, but that was a big old bummer.
Yeah.
As far as queue times and connection issues and shaky servers in the first week, I mean, it was a big switch. Like, not upset about those things. They all seem pretty reasonable to me. I do think that Blizzard has gotten a lot of passes on a lot of things, and I want to protect the Overwatch team like they are my children because I feel as though they're better than Blizzard, but still, there's a lot of money to make transitions like this go smoothly, and Overwatch is certainly backed by Blizzard, who is backed by Microsoft, who are all companies with large enough wallets to back those efforts. So I think overall, I wish that this launch felt more thought out and like they were a little bit more prepared for it. That said, I'm still not upset about the things that you would come to expect at any live service launch.
I would like to say I don't actually know how much larger Team 4 is now than it was several months ago. I not to give leniency to Blizzard necessarily. I'm going to give more leniency to Team 4 because I stand by that this was just the most massive of undertakings that, like, even the more I think about it, just every single component that had to fall into place to make Overwatch 1 become Overwatch 2. I just don't know if Team 4 had the necessary manpower to put together this whole thing and make it go exactly according to plan from day one. Yeah, they've had the merger thing up since June-ish, maybe even earlier. I can't exactly remember. I think it was June. But like, I just don't know. Regardless, you still need the number of coders to go through, fact check, no, not fact check, but like check everything, double check it, make sure it's running on the front end, make sure it's running on the back end before it launches. Like, I just don't know if they had enough people working on this to really facilitate it. And I think that'll change. Like, I suspect that this launch will be the buggiest and they will get less and less so over each season turnover, because I imagine that the funding from the battle pass and all that extra, like the little microtransactions and stuff, I suspect that's going to provide enough money for them to expand and put more bodies on the case to fix any potential issues going into each season rollover. And also, like, every new season is going to get easier and easier because the game will become itself much more stable. Like, this was going to always be the biggest thing because they were completely changing over the engine. Like, that in and of itself was a huge undertaking, plus expecting them to, merge every single account and filter out which ones were fake and filter out which ones were, because that's the other thing too. Like, with all the DDoSes and everything, like that's just spamming fake accounts at the system. Yeah, constant. Like, it was just, there were so many things that could have gone wrong. It was completely impractical to assume that this was going to go well. But like, I don't know. It's one of those things. People just need to be more patient with it. Straight up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is one of those perfect opportunities, right, where we can acknowledge that the devs working on Overwatch 2, Team 4 as a whole, is working really hard on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that it has been mad crunch for 2 years in those offices. But I can still blame Blizzard for being shitty, and I can still blame Microsoft for being shitty. And, I think both things can be true, right? Like, we can look at Team 4 and say they didn't have the manpower. This was a huge undertaking. Games are always the worst at launch because it's when you have your largest player base. All of those things are true. And also, Blizzard should have done a better job, and that's not
Yeah.
Team 4's fault. That's Blizzard's fault.
Yeah.
So there you go. But hey, speaking of Blizzard, they made a big old decision when it comes to one of the most contested updates to Overwatch 2, the SMS verification for your Battle.net account. Blizzard has rolled some of that back now officially, and it started on October 7th. If you were on Overwatch, actually not even Overwatch, I think if you had just gotten online with your Battle.net account sometime between 2021 and now, you don't have to verify with an SMS. However, going forward, if you make a new Battle.net account, you will still have to verify your SMS. Your thoughts? Do you have thoughts? Do you care? I'll be really honest. I don't know that I care. It's just news.
This is a multiple-edged sword, my friend, because, like, it doesn't matter to you and I. We both have phones. Okay? We both have phones. I now only have one account across all platforms. I did have two PC accounts, okay? I got rid of the one because I don't need it anymore. But I only have one account now across all the platforms that were merged. We both have phones, not a problem for us. Where this is a problem, not everybody has a phone. Now with a free-to-play game especially, not everybody has a phone because not everybody necessarily has the money to pay for parts of this game. You know? However, this is like one of the biggest steps towards getting rid of like Smurf accounts and the cheater problem that everybody was so fired up and hot and bothered about when they said the game was going free to play. This is kind of a can't have your cake and eat it too moment. Like, there are only so many steps you can take to mitigate the other problems and the other concerns that come with free-to-play games. So, like, it's hard to filter out prepaid phones and things like that, which became easy methods of getting alt accounts when it came to, like, Smurf accounts and top 500s and things like that. Like, it's a very complicated issue. But at a certain point, like, you have to kind of look at it objectively and say, well, you know, if you want to be really, really competitive with this, like, if you're going to go the whole 9 yards and go for, you know, GM top 500, like, you've got to find a way to put a cell phone with this, put something with this so that we know, so that it's just mitigation. It is just mitigation and filtering. There's a better way to do it. There's a better way to do it. This is also something that I think we've had, like, kind of transparency on for a while. Like, they've said that this is a thing that we're going to be doing for a while. And it only just became, everybody was mad about it this past week when it actually was enacted. So, I don't know. My thoughts are very simply, like, you have to kind of you have to figure out exactly, like, where the cutoff is, because from what it seems like to me, the people that are mad about this are the same people that are mad about the cheating and smurfing thing. Like, that those same concerns came from, like, one overlapping circle. So, like, cake and eat it too.
Yeah. You know, I think there's certainly an accessibility thing there in the sense of if you can't afford a phone plan,
right,
can you not play this game? That's not so much a conversation that I want to get into, because I think people smarter than me have already said a lot of really smart things about it.
Correct.
I think it's fine that they're rolling back some of this verification. I think it was one of those things that was done with fine intention and was not super well thought out. And it'll ebb and flow for a while, and eventually it'll either settle on something that kind of works or it will go away. And to be honest, I don't really care.
It just simply goes back to the point of how complicated putting something like this out there is. Like, you need so many people thinking about so many things to make this an experience that is as inclusive and as competitively viable and as fun as possible. There's just a lot of moving parts.
For sure. Well, moving on to things that are confusing and have a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Let's talk about double overtime on control maps, because apparently
Jesus Christ,
double OT on control has been removed. So let me explain. to quote directly from Dexerto, previously, if a team had 99% of a point captured but lost control, when they retook possession, overtime would be triggered. However, in Overwatch 2, if a team retakes control of the point, they'll automatically reach 100% and the game will end. So, let me say out loud that I played Overwatch 2 not 45 minutes ago, played a control map, got to 99, lost control, retook control, and overtime triggered. So, according to Bad Pachamari, they were told at the Creator Summit that this is not a bug, it's a feature, and this is an intentional change. I was playing in quick play. I suppose this might just be a competitive thing. Brad, I don't know if you have any more knowledge about this.
I do.
Talk.
So my knowledge of this is that this is one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced in a game, because so the little bit of like my backstory on this. Last week, I was one of the fortunate people who was able to log in on Tuesday and play the game. My first,
you and your 10 friends.
Yeah, well, yeah, me and my 10 friends. One of the weird things that happened was a couple of those first 10 games that I played, like 4 of them were control, and of those 4 maps, 3 of them had this thing trigger where the retake happened and 100 there was no OT at all, and the game just ended, and I went, huh? And the first time it happened, I was like, did I miss something? Like what? And after the third time, I was like, something's actively wrong here. The next day, I found out that for the past, guess what, 6 years of Overwatch is what we're on now? 6 years of Overwatch?
Yeah.
The game, Overwatch 1, has been bugged. So that like extra overtime thing has been a bug in Overwatch 1 since launch. The devs never told nobody about it, nor did they fix it.
Neat.
So in Overwatch 2, they just quietly fixed the bug and never made a patch note, never told nobody, and we were like, what? Like,
wait.
Because Flats did a thing, like was on stream talking about it because it happened to him, and I guess they told the creators at the Creators Summit, and all of the creators were like, my guys, if it's been in the game for 6 years, that's not a bug. That is now that is now a gameplay feature. That is now a rule of the game.
Yeah, like these are things that, as somebody who plays and watches an awful lot of Overwatch, I notice. But they are also things that I have to imagine if you're like a normal human being who just plays video games for fun, you probably would never feel this or notice it.
I see if this is like your first week playing Overwatch, you're going to notice it because it happens more often than not. And the more you play the control maps, you really start to see it, because it was such a specific thing that triggered this, but that happens all of the time because of how fights shake out in the last 5% of that point cap. And so, and because, especially in that last 5%, especially with close games and close, I guess because of how control is sort of laid out and you sometimes go to 3 rounds, like that happens really, really frequently. Really surprisingly frequently. And if you've never played a control map, you're not going to notice it. Never. But if you've played this game for more than a couple months and have had plenty of time to play control, like if you've experienced it in Overwatch 1, it immediately feels different. Like something it triggers in your brain, like there should be overtime. Like we should have had a chance to like do that, and it's really weird. It feels weird. People will get over it, but it feels weird.
So now, okay, so I really feel like I just played a game in which this should have happened and it didn't happen, which I think is why I'm confused. So let's say you are on team A and I am on team B, and we are playing a control map.
Yeah.
And you on team A get control to 99%, and team B comes in and we ult dump on you and we take point back. So now it's 99 to, I don't know, 75 or whatever.
Yeah.
If you show up on point and ult dump us back, do we and we disengage and you flip point, does it just end? We don't get a chance to recontest? Is that
yes,
what I understand?
That's basically it. So you're only really going to notice it in very close games because and it's usually when it's in the like the 99 to like 90% territory. If you're at 99%, if your one team is at 99% and the other team is at 90, they flip back and get it to 100. Normally you would have expected there to be an overtime whether somebody touched or not. That just goes away. That just goes away completely. It would trigger. What it used to do was it would trigger an overtime if there was a flip back from the team from a team that had 99%. And if it went to 99%, you wouldn't have to trigger the overtime. You wouldn't have to be on point to trigger it. It would just trigger a quick overtime if they flip back and overshot.
Got it. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Which is why it was one of those things where most people got used to that timing. And so they would still be taking the fight outside of the point, especially when it was that close. And it's also why you would only notice it if the matches were close. Like when they weren't close, it didn't matter because you were 99 to 100, that team just won the point. But when it was really, really close, people had a few extra like moments, not even like 2 seconds in the first overtime to like actually react to it. And so, you know, the way the fights played out was just way different. It's something weird. And when you listen to them talk about how it was a bug that they fixed, it makes sense that it was bugged and it should have never been there. But everybody kind of got used to the ebb and flow of how that played out, that the minute that it started to be different, everyone's like, something is wrong here. And I don't know what it is.
Change.
Yeah.
There's been a disturbance in the force. Well, I have one last little bit of Overwatch 2 gameplay news.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard, Bastion and Torb have been sent to the workshop. Bastion now unavailable in all game modes. Torb still available in quick play, but on the bench for comp. This is because of two pretty broken bugs that, if you haven't seen a video of yet, are pretty funny. Bastion's ult, which I don't actually know the name of. Bastion's airstrike mode turret thing had infinite bullets. You could just shoot that thing forever. It was insane. And you could just chase people down and kill them, and it was super busted and horrifying. Especially if you plopped your ass down in the middle of a Kitsune rush, then it got really scary. Torb, on the other hand, had some weird bug where you could double trigger his overload, and you would get a whole boatload of shields. So, as far as I understand from what I've read, the Bastion bug happened a lot. The Torb bug seems to be kind of rare, but it certainly screws with competitive integrity. So you may still find a super beefy Torb in a quick play game or two, but we can all light a prayer candle and kneel in front of the Overwatch gods as they have removed Bastion from the game, even if just for a short time.
Yeah, this is going to be... I can't imagine that it'll be more than a week that they'll be out. There's no way. That this is something... It's what now, Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday now. So, like, I would be surprised if this isn't fixed by, like, Thursday or Friday. That being said, like, them being out from competitive is not going to be anything anybody notices because nobody plays them in competitive anyway. Like, Torb is a bit of a sleeper pick. Torb's actually pretty good right now, just in general, like, outside of the bug, which I didn't get the pleasure of experiencing. Pretty sad about that. But like he's actually like kind of a sleeper pick because with one less tank, there's now one less person to shoot at the turret. And so that has actually proven to be surprisingly effective, especially when Genji is so powerful because now Genji has something extra to worry about.
Yep.
But outside of that, like, I don't think really no one above probably plat is gonna really experience the difference here. You know, the metal ranks are gonna be kind of bronze and silver are gonna be real sad for a minute. But that's about it. It's fine. Like, it
depends how you define sad. If Bastion never comes back, Bastion never comes back, and we're all the better for it.
Okay.
I said it out loud. There it is. My hot take.
He's not that
Whatever.
bad now. He's really not that bad. He's not
He is
that bad.
better.
Like,
certainly better.
He has to move around now, like, and he only can sit there for 6 seconds. Like, he is very easy to shoot at when he is in that. He's a very big signature to shoot at. Like, there's hard cover. He's fine. It's not a big deal.
He's gotten better. I feel like if you are somebody who knows how to play Overwatch, like me, and you're up against, you know, a random quick play grouping of people who may not play as much Overwatch as you, Bastion has become significantly more oppressive than he was. But I just hate Bastion. I just really hate Bastion. Bastion was my first main, and he still feels bad. I feel icky when I use Bastion. I don't like Bastion. Take Bastion out of the game.
Ugh.
End rant.
Wah. He's so cute, though.
He is cute.
He's the cutest
like
fucking Overwatch character.
I wish that his hat showed up on Overwatch 1 skins. I'm bummed out that it doesn't. Anyway, speaking of places you can get a hat, I guess.
Nice
The Overwatch
segue.
McDonald's collab has been confirmed.
Oh.
But maybe only in Australia. It was confirmed on Twitter via McDonald's Twitter. But what's cool is that people have done a little source code digging and discovered some regional promotion only unlockables for Junker Queen, who is, if you missed it, Australian. So, sounds like the Overwatch 2 Australian Happy Meal will come with a Junker Queen skin, which is much cooler to me than a Happy Meal toy. So I am hopeful personally that we get like, I don't know, maybe a Midwestern Roadhog skin. I think that would be fun. Put Roadhog in a flannel and overalls and give him corn instead of a hook. I want a Midwestern Roadhog skin.
No, they're gonna give him. They gotta give him that a cow onesie that looks like the big inflatable cow on Busan. Oh,
yeah,
I want that.
I love that.
Oh, I want that so bad. But if this is, if this is a regional thing with Australia, it's McDonald's. You know, you don't.
Yeah, wow, that was pretty good.
Not gonna give you any plastic silver. You'll get a knife. They're gonna give you a knife.
I can't do an Australian accent. All I can say is
no.
that's not a knife.
Oh no.
Anyway, that's all I have about Overwatch and McDonald's. A little bit more of an interesting story. Some Twitch streamer got the cops called on him for being an asshole. So some guy on Twitch posted screenshots on Twitter. Apparently, this guy just had the phone number of Andy Belford, the community manager of Overwatch, and this Twitch streamer was upset that he was locked out of his heroes, and so he started tweeting threats or texting threats to Andy Belford, and basically was like, if I see you, it's on site. And Andy Belford, I have the text in front of me, said, I am certain you regret saying that, so I'll ignore the threat of violence. That is a bug. We're working on it. Your stuff is still there. And then the guy went on and was like, you better sort that out. Last time I'm telling you.
Oh, for
and Andy
fuck's sake.
Belford was like, and now I am informing the authorities.
Let's double down. Let's just double down. Wow.
Hey, losers, don't threaten the devs. They're human beings. Jesus Christ. Gamers are the worst. I don't know where you entitled little mouth breathers get the idea that just because some of your characters on your digital game aren't available today, that you get to threaten to hurt people. But go touch grass. You're not allowed to play video games anymore.
This is just and this isn't just an Overwatch problem for the record. Apex had a really bad stint with this past month. There was a big thing about it on the internet where it was like, the devs, first of all, Respawn had to put out a statement being like, hey, don't fucking threaten the devs. Like, they be working on it. Like, chill. Like, why is that the response? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's a game. It's a game.
Yeah.
Like,
it is a game.
It's a game.
Take a breath.
Why are you threatening people about a game? You could be mad about the game. Just don't. Why are you threatening people over it? It's like, come on now.
Yeah. That's all I need to say about that. Next thing, I personally am now on the hunt for an Overwatch 1 disc for both Xbox and PlayStation, because apparently GameStop has reportedly told stores to destroy all remaining Overwatch discs. So, if you are a games collector like I am, and you're trying to find Overwatch, go check your local GameStop immediately and see if they'll sell you one and or give you one, because apparently they are just supposed to be destroying them. This was posted by a TikTok user and GameStop employee by the name Kishinada. Basically, it was a in-store memo that says, this week we are asking you to pull and a word I can't read and destroy all unsold Overwatch discs.
On the one hand, this is a really weird thing. I do kind of understand it, because technically Overwatch 1 doesn't exist anymore. I sort of get it. On the other hand, I really want, if there's somebody out there who has an Overwatch 1 disc already, I would like you to do me a favor and just put it in whatever medium it is that you have that disc for, and just see what happens. Like, does the girl from The Ring show up on your screen now that the game doesn't exist? Does it install The Matrix? Do you now have access to all of Blizzard's source code? Like I just want to know what happens that has caused them to be like, hey, destroy these discs.
Yeah, I have to imagine. So I was telling Brad before we started recording, to you, the podcast listener and or viewer, telling Brad before we started recording, I was listening to another podcast that was talking about Overwatch 2 and how iffy Blizzard's communication has been leading up to launch. And one of the guys on this podcast said that he fired up Overwatch 2 on launch day, and it had the Overwatch 2 logo where the Overwatch 1 logo was, and then said disc loaded for Overwatch 2, even though it was only an Overwatch 1 disc. Now, I have to imagine that because Overwatch 2 is free to play, that update probably put a digital copy of the game on the console. I doubt that the disc is doing anything to run the game.
Yeah, probably not.
But I don't know. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm definitely going to try and find a couple of physical copies just to have, because I'm like that. And, yeah. GameStop. Burning history. Burning books over there at GameStop.
Maybe not the same. Maybe not the same.
Oh, it's the same. It's certainly the same. Anyway, my last bit of news. This is actually Overwatch League related, and then we will move on to our game of the week. Toronto Defiant has COVID. Second time this season. They all have COVID. It's not all. Only 4. 4 of Toronto Defiant has COVID. They announced via Twitter that they will play remotely with the hopes of all being back together for the play-ins. That's what those are called, the play-ins, and then in hopes the LAN tournament. So there you go. That's the headlines.
All right, let's game of the week it up.
Yeah, dude. Battle of Texas. That's the game we're talking about, everybody. It's the Battle of Texas. Houston, Dallas, Texas.
Remarkable. This whole week has been just kind of like this whole week was in fact like upsets for the most part. We haven't seen this many upsets since that first week of Junker Goats.
Yeah, there were a lot of wonky games this week. This certainly, I think, in the West at least, being the wonkiest. I did not see Houston beating Dallas. I called Dallas 3-0 on this, as honestly I think a lot of people did. And Houston came out and won 3-1, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk while we've got map 1 going here for us. I wanted to talk before we even get into the game and the meta just about the importance of LAN events. So this game was played in front of a sold-out crowd, the Dallas Esports Arena. This is the second LAN Battle of Texas that the Fuel and the Outlaws have had. It looked like a really awesome event. It sounded like a really awesome event. Uber and Custa did a great job. Like, I just want to talk to you a little bit about how you feel about these LAN events we've seen this year, what you would like to see more of, if you have any ideas of how this could work in the future, so on and so forth.
I'm going to start by saying I just want to see more LAN events in general. Like, quite honestly, I would love for Overwatch 2 to recover the league to the point where, like, we have home and away events on a regular basis, because I personally would like to go to one. And
I would also that, yes.
Yeah, like, and I don't want it to just be the tournaments where I have to set aside an entire week and buy tickets to the whole gosh darn thing and travel to Anaheim, for example. While I would like to do that also at some point and go to a full-on tournament, I would like to get to the point where Overwatch League is back and I can go to watch the New York Excelsior play at the Javits Center and get their ass kicked by anybody else in North America. I would like to do that. So that's the first thing I want to get at. As for the importance of LAN, just as a general thing, I mean, ping makes a difference, but ping is not the full difference maker here. Especially with the North American teams playing against other North American teams, you're looking at maybe 49 milliseconds with the PCs that they're spec'd out to play. That's not enough to feel it in what I have experienced with Overwatch versus other games, where you start to notice, like, the timing being off is like around like 80 milliseconds is when it starts to feel it, and then anything above 100 just feels like garbage. So the LAN itself, I don't think is making the biggest difference. I think it's the arenas and the energy in there, and who handles that better. Because they have these big helicopter grade headphones on that are supposed to get rid of the sound. But when you've got a full arena really shouting, that's not going to do everything. So there's definitely like a different sort of nerve factor when you're, you know, on stage in that kind of setting. A lot of things going on, a lot of lights, fog machines, probably maybe some pyrotechnics, things like that, just going all ham. Like, I think those events, that's kind of really what makes the difference with like how these games are played, because it then becomes a matter of who handles it differently.
Yeah, well, and I think that we've seen that work in the opposite direction too. I mean, look at Toronto's performance in the Summer Showdown. Like, you cannot tell me that home field advantage wasn't a massive buff for the Defiant through that tournament.
Yeah.
I really love LAN events. I want to see more LAN events. I am certainly one of the heathens in the esports world who thinks that esports should trend more towards the styles of real sports, quote unquote real sports.
Yeah.
I think that that's for the benefit of the industry, and I think LAN events like that, like this, are really strong proof of that. I agree with you as far as ping goes. I mean, Merit looked really hot in this game, so like when you're playing the super pro level, maybe having those 50 milliseconds of ping gone just makes things feel a little easier. But I agree. I don't think that there's a massive difference in performance. I think it's a lot more about, head game, pressure, home crowd advantage. Like, you know, that idea of playing for something and playing for someone makes a big difference. So I really enjoyed this. I would love to see Overwatch League. I'm watching the game and also talking to my camera over
Yeah.
here. But I would like to see the Overwatch League do some home stands.
Yeah.
And say, like Washington is going to play their next 6 games at home, and we're going to bring 3 teams in to play Washington, to play Friday, Sunday, 3 weekends in a row. And then, like, I don't know, LA or New York or other cities with esports arenas that I know about do home stands. I think that would be really awesome and give people an opportunity to identify with these teams a little bit more. I would also love to see Overwatch. What I really want is for the Overwatch League to move their tournaments to neutral ground. I think that not necessarily like grand finals or anything like that, but like, I live in Columbus, Ohio, former home base of Major League Gaming. We have like 15 esports arenas of varying size in this town, and we are within a 6-hour driving distance of 85% of the United States. Like, put a tournament somewhere where a team is not based, allow people to travel together, make these events more of an event. Obviously COVID, whatever, but just going forward, these battles for Texas have given me so much like, this is what we could have. This is it. And I'm huffing that hopium for sure.
I tend to agree with you that I would like to see Overwatch League start to remimic actual professional sports. There was a time several years ago where that was the case. There was a lot, there was a great video actually last week. One of the sort of send-offs to Overwatch 1, Custa was talking about his sort of like experience coming up as a professional, and there was a golden era of professional Overwatch where there was like the excess, like the almost rock star excess of the Overwatch League, where there was just money going around everywhere, big events, just crazy hype. And it's very much like, there's more to it, like when talking about like the professional sports aspect of it, but even as people who, spectate this game and analyze this game, stuff like that, there is a lot of comparisons that we make to professional sports in general. And, when we talk about injuries and things like that, like regardless of what it is, this is a very, professional-esque sport. And there is a level of expectation where it would be really, really great just to see more home and away style things going on. And I get it, okay? Renting a convention center costs money. So maybe it's not the most cost effective to every week have home and away somewhere. But there's got to be a way to like maximize the ability to do live events, even on a smaller scale so much, where you could do that substantially more often than once a stage and once a tournament. There just has to be. And I guess Overwatch 2 now launching and in January when the PvE hits and stuff like that, that's going to be kind of the telltale, right? However much money they make from their microtransactions in the battle pass and the PvE and stuff like that, however big this gets, that will eventually translate to more money going to the Overwatch League. And I don't think it's completely out of the question to say that we're going to see that eventually. It's not going to happen this season, but there is very real possibility that they make enough money off of this launch and the next couple of seasons to make it happen by the start of next season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've said a lot, like, this league needs a lot of work. I think Blizzard is a big roadblock for those things, but I agree on all counts, and I don't necessarily feel like I need to repeat them. I'll spoil it for you here if you're watching the Game of the Week on our feed or if you're watching our video. First off, let me just say we're trying to make the Game of the Week segment a little more friendly to audio listeners. Thing number 2, I'll spoil this map for you. Houston wins on Control in 3. Brad, if you want to skip up to the next map here, I really want to talk about the compositions that we're seeing from Dallas and Houston because we've seen a lot of comps throughout this little Countdown Cup feature here. And I am feeling pretty good about the comps that Dallas and Houston are running as far as general success.
Yeah.
So what we've got is mostly a mirror matchup. Bap Lucio backlines, Zarya tank, Sojourn, and a Tracer or a Genji. Houston does a little bit of flexing to Sombra. Dallas does a little bit of flexing to Ana. But it's pretty much Bap Lucio, Zarya, Sojourn with a Tracer or Genji. So what are your thoughts on this meta and how it was effective in this matchup?
My thoughts on this meta, weirdly, are that it's about to change again, and I have the hardest time. I have the hardest time analyzing this with intention because I know for a fact that next week, 2 weeks from now, whenever they go into the actual play-ins, we're gonna start seeing Kiriko, and that is. You know, I'm so ready for that. It's going to be so much fun. Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun to watch. As for the meta where it's at right now, I think what's really, really cool is that overarchingly, outside of the league as well, the balance right now is just it's a masterpiece. It's absolutely a masterpiece. And there is one defining factor, and that is Hog is not only playable, but encouraged. Outside of the league, he's gonna have a hard time finding like a place in the league because of focus fire, but like Hog is encourageable, and that is always like a milestone of this means the meta is good. Because
it's so true.
It just is. When Hog is good, the rest it just means that the balance across the board is correct. And I love that for what we're watching right now, because you are seeing little bits of flexibility. You're seeing much more mobility. You're seeing a lot of emphasis on flankers. You're not seeing much hit scan, which is for me personally, I'm not in love with, but I'm also not against it. I always like to see a hit scan just being playable, even if it's something like Soldier. I'm always for seeing some hit scan in the mix, but I don't hate where the professional meta is right now. I just like seeing a little bit of the variety. I like seeing Zarya being good. I like seeing teams play the flanker to their strengths, because you're not seeing Sombra everywhere. You are seeing a lot of Sombra, but you're not seeing exclusively Sombra. You're not seeing exclusively Genji. Genji or Tracer. Sometimes you're seeing both. It's just like right now there's a lot more flexibility than we've seen in a long time. And I like seeing that. That makes me happy. Gives teams much more of a chance to really, really emphasize their strengths.
Yeah, I definitely like it when it's a more flexible meta. The downside about Jotes was like, well, if you were a team that was bad at Jotes, you just lost every game.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like it when there's a little bit more flex. I think that this comp is primed to go fast.
Yeah.
It's a go fast comp. And for the first attack on map 2, which is Paraiso, the Outlaws do a great job of go fast. Mm-hmm. They go so fast to point A. The rest of their attack, I think Dallas does better about taking high ground away from Houston. The one thing I don't like about this meta is how hard it is for your tank to have any sort of mobility. Like all you have is Lucio, and Zarya is pretty chunky, and if both bubbles get burned, you in trouble. And I think that point B of Paraiso is a really good trap for this meta, because it is so easy for the defense to get established on the high ground and so difficult for the offense to break into high ground. I agree with you. The meta is about to change. We have one more week of this meta, and then Kiriko comes in for pro play. So that'll certainly change a lot. I have really enjoyed seeing Orisa Rush played here and there. I think that Orisa has some really good viability, but I think that Zarya at least in my mind, has kind of defined or kind of been defined as the go-to tank for this little mini meta that we're working right now.
Yeah. I think in regards to Zarya, to specify it particularly with the Houston-Dallas game right now, I think one of the reasons that Houston was able to pull this out was actually it was Dante's Zarya, which is kind of a remarkable thing to say considering he has almost exclusively up to this year been known, well, no, exclusively known up to this year as the DPS player and a prolific one at that. Like, it's crazy the amount of flexibility he has had in changing his hero pool and becoming the tank player. What is quite notable, though, with this match in particular is just how he was able to diff Hanbin, who has been quite, like, again, notable for his Zarya play. So the fact that Dante was able to run him over is notable on its own. I think the reason that it happened, I'm just watching this back, like, you were talking about the bubbles and now the double bubble change that came to Zarya in Overwatch 2. I think the reason that he was able to do this, like, I think Dante is thinking about Zarya more as a DPS player. His style for how he's using his bubbles, where he's looking when he's sending them out, and, like, where he's positioning himself. Like, he's playing Zarya much more like a DPS player. He's thinking about it from the DPS side of things, whereas I think Hanbin still kind of looks at Zarya, and maybe I'm wrong, because obviously he is a professional. I can't really speak to the mentality, but he's still playing Zarya like a tank player. And like there's another tank to be bubbled. So it's much more reserved, whereas like this side of Houston, it's very much go, go, go. And I think that's kind of where the difference fell for them, that really like stood out this time around.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dante uses his bubbles to get charge. Hanbin uses his bubbles to save lives. And I think sometimes using your bubbles to save lives goes really, really far. You know, like if you're up against a team with really high coordination and focus fire, you can do a lot to shut that play style down with defensive bubbles, which is why I think Hanbin has looked so prolific for the last few weeks. But Houston didn't bother focus firing anybody. They were like, let's just go forward and kill whoever is in our way. And it was hard for Dallas to play into. I mean, Dallas ends up winning this map, and they hold Houston. Houston completes an overtime, and then Dallas just kind of like rolls right on through. And I don't know necessarily if it's a map differential that makes the big difference, or, you know, like why Dallas looked better on this map than they did on the other maps, but the other big difference to this meta in the teams, or excuse me, the other big difference in this play, Zarya versus Zarya, is the way that they coordinate with the Lucio.
Yeah.
So, like, Chio is glued to Hanbin. Like, Chio does not want to leave Hanbin alone, ever. Lastro, on the other hand, who I see what we're talking about right now has switched to Zen, but Lastro, when he's playing Lucio, is hyper aggressive and is sticking to Pelican on the Genji and just doesn't really give a shit about Dante, because Dante can keep himself alive. And I think that, like you were saying, this DPS mindset versus the tank mindset is, there is this intention for Dallas of like, we need to protect Hanbin. Keep Hanbin up. If Hanbin dies, we all die. And the mentality for Dante being like, well, this is my thing. I just got to live because everybody else is doing their own thing. I don't know that it works for Houston every time. And I think most of the time Dallas's playstyle works for them. But I think these two things are so opposite that we just saw a big difference between play styles in this matchup.
I mean, we're gonna talk about pacing more in the next map, but you are pretty correct on that, because I am, the more I watch this, like I do see Chio just hovering around Hanbin And it's almost too aggressive at times because of kind of like the Zarya duel that's going on, because I watch Dante a lot of times flick off of Hanbin to do damage to the Lucio. And it's like, you're setting yourself up for failure, because obviously Hanbin can get a speed boost, he can get healing at any time, and a faster moving Zarya is terrifying at times. But it is almost counterproductive because it sets up a lot of danger for your Lucio, who is very, very integral in this entire comp. Like, the idea is that they're speeding and healing everybody within that zone. But the downside is you're kind of forcing your hand as to where your team can play. So like with Dante being left alone, it gives Sparkle especially a chance to just like maneuver around a lot faster. Edison can take more, what am I looking at? Not Sparkle and Edison. I'm looking at the wrong team. No, it gives Pelican, a chance to really like get value and find more aggressive angles, and Merritt gets to sort of just play where he wants. And that's ultimately that is ultimately like what's helping Houston really pull this out. Like it's just giving them more flexibility at the end of the day. And now that we're like on the second, well, we're on the defensive side. Houston's kind of Lastro's swapped over to the Zen, which I personally favor. I think Zen here is like I like Zen on most defenses, especially in the current meta. He's just more damage, and especially when you're dealing with something as survivable as Zarya, you can burn down targets really quickly. If your team has a good focus fire potential, there is no reason you shouldn't be playing Zen. Like, flat out. That's a whole other topic, but like, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with all those takes. Interesting that you favor Zen. I don't know that I feel the same way, but I'm excited to talk about that a little bit more going forward. Let's move on to the third map here. Like I said, Dallas does end up taking this one from Houston. Moving on to map 3, we go to Circuit Royale. And this is where I want to talk about pace.
Yeah.
Because, oh boy, does Dallas get outpaced by Houston. Like, Houston puts nitrous in the tanks. They hold W to win. They run fast. Call it what you want, but it's just like Dallas getting bowled over. Dallas doesn't even take the spawn door hold. They barely commit to the first corner hold. And like at this point, Houston is already around 2 chokes. What? I'm trying to read the clock and it's small. 20 seconds into the time bank. So yeah, talk to me about pace a little bit.
So Dallas is one of those teams that suffers from the same problem that the Shock does. And that is, if they're not the ones setting the pace, they have no idea what to do. Dallas are very lucky. I don't know if it's lucky, but like, part of the reason they're so, this is the better point. Part of the reason that they're so skillful is the fact that they generally are the ones who can just crowbar their pace into the team fight. And that's what benefits them so well. In this case, Houston just was not letting that happen. They were not giving any opportunity for Dallas to really force their tempo. And so because of that, Houston was just able to confuse them and focus them down. Like they're always the ones finding the first pick. This was, in this case, like what's up on screen right now was like the first team fight that Dallas was able to win, and it's already the end of point A. So, you know, they were lucky enough to get the first pick, but if Dallas isn't setting pace, Dallas doesn't know what to do. That's just kind of the running theme. You know, the points from this map and the last one kind of run together because there are reasons for this with the way that Houston is choosing to play. Like, generally speaking, the running joke for Overwatch 2 has been, you know, oh, healers, you know, feel really difficult. No, it's because you can't be a heal bot anymore. Part of your damage mitigation has to be that you're dealing damage. And we see a lot of that kind of going on with how Houston is choosing to play. Don't need to heal nobody if nobody's left alive to do damage to you. Like, it is constantly just like run them over, make sure you're securing the first pick, and then take care of the rest.
Yeah. You bring up a great point about healers. I want to give a little bit of love to Creative, who I think looked phenomenal in this game. So this is Houston, Sands, Doge, and Lep. They're two contenders pickups of recent, and with Creative, who came over from APAC. And I think Creative looked great. I mean, we're pretty far past it in the video that we have up right now, but he is outpacing Fielder pretty significantly on wall progression and ult generation. So definitely my hat's off to Creative for stepping into that role. I think one of the big differences I noticed in Houston's the team I meant. In Houston in this game was their intelligent disengages. Because I always kind of think of Houston as a go fast, go forward team. And usually I think they bone themselves a lot and things become Houstonable because they get greedy, they go too far forward. Of course, I'm talking about is they're trying to touch the spawn door, but like, I think Houston did a good job of playing this map smart and this game smart, which I don't always think Houston is the best at.
I think part of that does come down to the comp that is in fashion right now, because again, it's a lot of things that are dependent on sight lines and on distance from your supports. And those two things, when combined together, almost in a similar fashion to what Junker Goats was, it almost forces intelligent gameplay if you have any hope of winning. Which, thank God, it means that there are other comps that can do this, and it's not just a Junker Goats kind of thing, because that always makes the general gameplay feel better overall. But in this case in particular, like, it's one of those things that's really helping Dallas, or Houston, God, Texas. Man, I did not think when we picked the Battle of Texas that I was going to have this hard of a time talking about the Battle of Texas, but the fact that both teams are from Texas is really just screwing with my head right now.
Yeah, man, I feel that.
Anyway, as I was saying, I think the way that this meta is shaping up, it favors Houston's play style, but it also forces them to think a little bit more intelligently. That being said, like, there are still hints of the old habits. Basically, every team fight that they lose during, well, pretty much the entire match, not just Circuit Royale, but it's kind of especially noticeable on Circuit Royale because they are the fights that they lose, they really lose. There are hints of the old Houstonable traits where they do just get greedy and they take weird fights. The one that's going on screen is like a touch the spawn door from Dallas, which is going all over point A and parts of point B and all of both spawns. It's freaking bizarre. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, Houston was just able to make their pace the pace of the game, and they forced Dallas down to their level. I say that like Houston's a bad team, but we know that Houston's inconsistent. So they were able to force Dallas into the inconsistency and then beat them with experience.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see it right here in like what we're seeing on screen. You know, Dallas came up, got greedy, touched the spawn door, and paid for it. And this is pretty much the beginning of the end for Dallas on this map. Once Houston gets point B, they just roll to point C, and it's pretty brutal. And I really think the last person I kind of want to give the love to here is Lastro. Lastro, I think, played maybe his best game of the season. I cannot remember any other game where I've talked about Lastro nearly as much. His Lucio looked awesome. He was super aggressive, but he still healed his team. He was what I always want Funny Astro to be, and Funny Astro just refuses to be. So I want to give my commends to Lastro, who I think played really, really well on this map.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole of Dallas. Houston! The whole of Houston! Jesus.
The green team.
The
All the
green
green team played good.
They did their jobs in a very, very exemplary fashion. Sports, words, talking points, map 4. New Queen Street.
Map 4 it is. Let's talk about New Queen Street. We go to push. Honestly, at this point where we are, I think we've talked a lot about the games. We've talked a lot about the play style. I kind of just want to break this down to the diffs that I saw, because I saw a couple of really crucial player diffs that I think determined the outcome of this map. The first one is Hanbin and Dante, which we have talked about at length.
Yeah. Oop.
The other one, both on Sojourn.
Hold on. I lost you for a second there.
Oh, it's okay. I'm back now, I think, because I lost you too.
Yeah, I got you. I heard you. The first one was Dante and Hanbin, which we've talked about at length, and then I didn't catch you back up until you started saying Sojourns, the Sojourns on Merit and Edison. So
then you didn't miss anything, Brad. That was basically all I really had to say. I'm sure something got cut out, but
yeah.
My whole point was the two big diffs that I saw were Dante Hanbin, which I think we talked about a lot already, and then Merritt and Edison, who have been sort of the clutch kings of Dallas and Houston on Sojourn. And I think Merritt and Edison both had some value in the first 3 maps, but this map in particular, it really felt like, in a sense, Sojourn fight Edison versus Merritt, and I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I agree. I enjoy a good Sojourn duel. It's one of the reasons that I was saying I always do like to see when the hit scan players get to come out and play, because I think the Sojourn duel is almost as interesting to watch as a Widow duel in a lot of ways, and you can kind of see just throughout throughout the entire map, really, you can see where basically the first target priority on either of their minds is the other, and that is just so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. You can watch, like, every time we get a chance to see their POV, you get to see kind of how their eyes are darting for target prioritization. And if Merritt's not on the field right now, it's a very big noticeable difference in Edison's target selection and vice versa. I don't have too much to say because they're both phenomenal players. Like, we've seen Merritt pop off pretty much the entire season. Edison, especially the past 2 stages, has really shown up, largely because he's had to sort of step into the role over Gurio, and also Gurio's just kind of not had much of his heroes be in the meta, or just sort of in vogue at the time. And so Edison has kind of had to step into the flexibility role, especially when it comes to, like, your Ashe, your Sojourn, and some of the basically to supplement Sparkle. And so Edison's really, as of late, had just such a strong showing. Like, I can't really say, I don't want to say that he got diffed. I just think that, like, the other factors at play were so strong that, like, Merritt was able to sort of take advantage of him.
Yeah, man. I don't think it's diffed necessarily in a bad way. I mean, I think that great players can get diffed by just not performing as well on a map as the other guy. I think Edison had a good game, but I think Merritt certainly has his number on this one.
Yeah, I mean, you can even look at, for the audio listeners, like, you can look at the ult percentages. Like, Merritt has a solid almost 10% on Edison, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes to professional players and when it comes to the Sojourn role in general, that's a fair amount, especially now that Sojourn doesn't get ultimate charge and doesn't get charge off of shields. Period. Mm-hmm. It just means that damage output is just up there.
Yeah. So where we're watching on screen is right about the beginning of the end. Houston takes the lead for the first time with about 5 minutes left. They activate Butt Scratch with 3 and change left on the clock, and that's it. Dallas wins some fights. Houston plays smart. Most of this map plays out in the neutral, and it's pretty clean cut. I think Sparkle rolling out on Genji on this map wasn't the move. He switched to Tracer at the end, and it's fine. I think by the time they got to push, Dallas looked pretty defeated. They didn't seem to have a lot of fight back to try and win this map back after Houston took it from them. So I don't have that much else to say about the game of the week unless you do.
I don't think so. I think the general overarching thing was that, Houston seemed to have the kryptonite for Dallas. And I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to Houston just know how to step on the gas and run over Dallas. Like, they just know how to be the ones to set the pace. And, again, it came down to a few times where that did come back to bite them, but ultimately, Dallas just doesn't have an answer for a team that can really just sink their teeth in and drag them down to their level. It's pretty crazy to watch. That's just that's the takeaway.
I think you nailed it. Well, with that, you want to do some Preds?
Yeah,
Here
why
where
not?
we have 1 week of the regular season left and nothing matters because the meta changes anyway. I love it.
Why not? Let's get into some predictions.
I'll tell you this, because there are only West region games. I didn't pick games for us to Pred. I thought we'd just do all of them.
That's fair. That's fair.
I thought that might be fun for us here. I've already got my picks done and pulled up so you can sort yours out live on air. I'm vamping right now because I want to pull up the standings and see if there is really anything left that could fluctuate. Nope, playoffs are locked.
Cool.
As far as I can tell, wait, I gotta do math. How many points do you get per win? Do you remember how many points you get for win? I don't remember.
Not off the top of my head.
Teams earn 1 league point per match win and a bonus point for tournament win placement. Okay, yeah, playoffs are locked.
8.
Vancouver didn't win enough games to get in. New York still has 2 games this weekend, but can't catch Boston, who also has 2 games this weekend. So playoffs are officially locked. This weekend is largely for fun. And seeding, because seeding can certainly be shifted around a lot between teams 5 through 9. So
okay,
that's what I got.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then let's jump. Actually, before we jump right in, what are our records now? Because that matters.
So last week was the worst week for us in Spectator Diff history. We both went 2 and 3 last week.
In our history, not even like the week where everything just went wrong.
Right.
Oh,
I know.
No.
Bananas.
That feels
absolutely
bad.
Bananas.
That feels worse.
So we both went 2 and 3. I'm at 23 and 16. You're at 25 and 14. For those keeping track of if we beat our friends dumb bracket, yeah, we've absolutely run away.
Okay, thank God.
Brad and I
All
are
right.
curb stomping our friends right now. I'm pretty proud of it. I am also doing pretty well in my other bracket, so overall, I'm a happy guy.
Okay.
Well, you want to talk about some games?
Yeah, so let's talk about London versus Excelsior. Who do you like here?
I like London. I like London a lot. I have London 3-1 here. I think London has looked pretty good in this meta in the sense of they're trying a lot of different things. They're finding some stuff that works. I don't think that London's chance in playoffs will be heavily impacted by how many games they play this week or how many games they win this weekend. So I foresee London continuing to be a little flexy and play some different stuff. New York hasn't looked great. London 3-1.
This is, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, I think London 3-2. Only reason being, man, so many teams had a bye week this week. That is making this much harder, but like, Excelsior lost to the Justice 3-1, but they also lost to the Gladiators 3-2. The Gladiators booty bopped the Spitfire. Like, I think this is going to be a much closer match. There is no way that New York can make the play-ins. Am I correct?
Correct.
So they have less to play for. I don't think that matters. I still think London 3-2. I'm pretty comfortable giving them 2 maps.
Right on. I think that's fair.
Which brings us to the Shock Eternal. Man, I feel so bad for the Paris Eternal. I feel so bad for them. They just cannot catch a break.
I can tell you what I want to happen. What I want is for Paris Eternal to 3-0 the Shock.
That's not going to happen.
And what I want is for the Shock to go out and play a charity game and let Paris 3-0 them, so that everybody from Paris can go home and feel okay about themselves this season.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because San Francisco needs seeding. So
yeah, I mean, clearly they're not going to do that. It's San Francisco 3-0.
Yeah.
What do we even talk about? It's San Francisco 3-0 for sure.
Oh, 100%. I'm not even going to argue with that. There's not a chance in hell that doesn't happen. And when that happens, and I am editing this next week and put a video at the beginning saying, "Hey, there's no way that happens." Cut to the end of the game. Paris Eternal shuts out San Francisco Shock. I'm going to be real thumb and mouth about it, but like, whatever.
It will be the happiest I've ever been to get a prediction wrong.
I'm sure it will be. Defiant Mayhem.
This is hard. This is really difficult.
Sure is.
I thought about this one a lot, and then I decided I just need to think about it less. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm changing my Preds from what I did a couple days ago because of one of the headlines that came out today. I have Florida Mayhem 3-1.
Yeah.
Toronto Defiant all has COVID. It's like they're playing remote. Somebody's going to have weird internet issues. Half of them are going to have brain fog. I saw like poor Hisu's got like 102 fever right now.
Good Lord.
So yeah, I think Florida Mayhem 3-1. I originally had Toronto 3-1, but I am officially changing to Florida.
Yeah, I think I pretty much had Florida winning this because they've looked surprisingly okay. And they just keep looking okayer as things progress. I mean, they did just lose to the Reign, but I kind of expected that as well. The Mayhem look all right. They don't look bad. They don't look great, but they look the okayest of any team currently in the league. And
they are certainly okay.
they are doing all right. So I think Florida Mayhem 3-1 as well. I'm kind of like, yeah. I'm all right with that. This one
I would like to say real quick, technically Toronto is the okayest in the league because they are 11-11.
Make a wish.
Their map win-loss tie rate is 45-45-0.
Wow, that actually is the okayest in the league.
They are
statistically the most okay.
Yeah. So because most of them have COVID, they are IRL not the most okay, but statistically they're the okayest team in the league.
I can live with that. All right. So then we have the Shock versus London. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel worse about this prediction than any of the others so far.
Give it to me. What's your prediction,
because,
Mr. Shock fan?
Yeah, I am never not going to pick the Shock. I also think that this is going to be a 3-1. And it is mostly because I don't have the most faith in London. I like how they play. I'm always an underdog London fan, but I don't know why in particular. I'm just not feeling it for this match. Something feels like the San Francisco Shock are going to have it more together this week. I think the bye week will probably be spent fine-tuning a lot of things just because seeding now matters to them. Like, I don't know if they've officially overtaken Dallas with the Dallas loss again.
They have not.
But then they're within spitting distance, and also Dallas doesn't play this week. So, like, I feel like they're going to be coming out swinging to reclaim that top spot.
Yeah, so right now, San Francisco is third, behind Dallas and LA.
Okay.
LA has them by 1 point. Dallas has them by 2.
Okay. What's the map differential?
San Francisco is behind both teams by 1 on maps.
Then they're more than stone's throw. Like, they're less than stone's throw. If they theoretically won both matches, they have top seed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think winning just the Paris game does it, but if they win both, no matter how the score turns out at that point, I think that gets it to them.
From what I can tell, and I'm not the best at Overwatch stats, but from what I can tell, if they win the Paris match without giving Paris 2 maps, they'll move into second place.
Okay.
If Paris gets 2 maps, they stay in third. And then, if they beat London without giving... Actually, I think if they beat Paris... Sorry, I'm doing all this in real time. If they beat Paris 3-0 or 3-1, they move into second place. If they beat them 3-2, they stay in third. However, if they then beat London by any combination of maps, they should move into first place.
Okay.
So if Shock win both games.
So they, regardless of what the outcome is, they need to win both to get first seed. I think they want that. I think they're going to come out swinging. They'll probably beat the bloody piss out of Paris. And then I think London's playing well enough that they could sneak at least 1 map in there. So I'm comfortable giving London 1 map. I don't know if they'll make 2. If the Shock have it together and they're actually playing to their potential with what they've got available to them, I think this is not as close as it could have been at the beginning of this stage.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to go for the hero story. I like London 3-2 on this. I don't disagree with any of the things that you said. Shock certainly have a lot to play for here. Looking at the standings, if London wins both games this week... Yep, okay, so if London wins both games this week, they will move out of play-ins and take Atlanta's playoff spot.
Woohoo!
Nope, hold on. They will overtake Atlanta. Right now, London is in playoffs and not play-ins, but Toronto could knock them out. So if Toronto wins more games than London, Toronto could knock London out of playoffs into play-ins.
Looking ahead, at the rest of this weekend, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like both of them are going to be in the same boat.
Yeah. So I am going to go London 3-2 on this game just because I want to.
Okay.
Moving on, though, another game that I had like a weirdly hard time with, Boston, New York.
Boston 3-2.
That's what I said. Tell me why.
I think Boston's just looking good right now. I mean, so is New York by comparison, but Boston has me more convinced, if nothing else, than like historical not predictability, but historical like consistency. When Boston, you could say whatever you want about Boston. Boston's consistent. Either they're consistently garbage or they're consistently just good. And this stage, they've looked consistently good. So I'm kind of just more inclined to say them.
Yeah, it's kind of how I was feeling about it. Punk has looked good. Crimzo has looked good.
Yeah.
Valentine and Victoria looked really good.
Yeah, they've been popping off. And and by comparison, like New York is consistently inconsistent. It doesn't matter. Like, it just kind of depends what way the wind is blowing, if they have it together or not. And I'm not, I'm not a gambling man, but I'm certainly not going to start on New York. Last time I gambled on New York, they made me real sad, so I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, the one double points match of the weekend: Houston Outlaws, Florida Mayhem.
Yep, Houston 3-1.
Yeah, same. All of the nice things that we said about Florida earlier still apply. I feel as though this game is exceptionally Houstonable.
Yeah.
Like, exceptionally Houstonable.
This is the kind of match that they do like to lose. I just don't think right now, I don't feel like that's going to happen. I just don't.
Yeah. Same. All right, Paris Eternal, Boston Uprising. I'll start us off here. Boston 3-1. I think Paris gets a map here. I don't think they get more than a map.
Probably not. Again, Boston's just looked really good as of late. So I don't think that there's a chance that unless Paris decides to turn on the gas this week and beat the Shock and then, whatever, like, I don't think that they even pull more than a map. I would give them 3-1 as well.
Yeah. If Paris beats the Shock this weekend, like, Rack Attack and Luke Mino and all these contenders guys, like, their dicks will grow 7 sizes just overnight. Immediately, they will get huge because they beat the San Francisco Shock. And then they will remember that they've won 2 whole games this season and they'll go home.
Really didn't like how you put that. Don't just scoot past what you just said. Like we're gonna not talk about it for a second. That felt weird. Anyway.
Why are you booing me? I'm right. Anyway, last match, Toronto Defiant, Houston Outlaws. What you got?
Houston 3-0.
Ooh, 3-0,
Hold on. I take it back. I just thought a little bit more about this. Remember how I said that Houston Mayhem was the kind of game that they like to lose? Mm-hmm. This is absolutely the game that Houston will lose. It's going to be, I'm calling Toronto 3-2.
Hell yeah. Okay, so literally until today, I had Toronto 3-2. And then I found out Toronto has COVID.
Oh, damn, that's right. They have COVID.
I know, this is the hardest match to call of
that's
the
worse.
Whole week.
See, on the one hand, COVID and at home games, and Jesus got 102 fever. On the other hand, it's the Houston Outlaws.
Okay, I tell you what. Here's the thing. It's the last game of the weekend.
Who does this affect more?
Okay, give me a minute.
Yep.
Houston, Toronto. This game, if Toronto beats the Mayhem, which is a big if, but if Toronto beats the Mayhem, this game could decide whether or not Toronto is in playoffs or play-ins. Top 6 teams make playoffs. Toronto sits at 7. What I was going to say is this is the last game of the regular season. It's the last game of Spectator Diff predictions of the regular season. I agree with you. I think this game goes to 5. What if we just both pick one? We'll both go on one side. Which side do you want?
I see. We've started logicking through it, and now I'm having a hard time just picking one or the other, because I want to say, under the circumstances, if I was Toronto's coach, I would just take the weight off of this week, saying we're most likely not getting out of play-ins with our backs. I would say everybody heal up and focus on winning the play-ins. So at that point, all things considered, I'm gonna say Houston 3-2. now that we've like gone the logic route. I don't think we necessarily have to do the one or the other. I'm fine with saying Houston 3-2.
I'm locking it in, baby. Toronto 3-2.
Good enough.
Hiso's going to come out of the fog. He's going to click heads and not even know where he is.
The fever is going to activate the galaxy brain and nothing will stop Hisu.
Yeah, dude, the Toronto fever dream are coming for you, baby.
It's literally a fever dream.
Well, I think that is a great place to wrap it up. I don't have anything else to say
that's
unless
solid.
you do.
That's solid.
Excellent. Well, in that case, this will do it for another episode of Spectator Diff. Again, please subscribe to us here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio of our show, subscribe on your podcast app of choice.
Indeed.
You follow me on socials at MC_DJ_MC.
And me on socials at lastcall_gaming. Man, I'm having a day. I'm having a fucking day.
And until next time, just remember, we're better at watching Overwatch than you.
GG's, everybody.